City quitting is at the same time a real phenomenon and a fake one. From a certain point of view, it is a demographic trend clearly underway in mass Western and especially European urban context. It's the result of the constant increase in the cost of living, which is not followed by corresponding increasing in wages. It's a generalized phenomenon between cities and countryside, but it's clear that the impact of these increases are enormously greater in urban context. Furthermore, the financialization of the economy has produced new forms of position rents and consolidated the old ones. This has led to a slowing down of social mobility, making cities increasingly less attractive for those in the middle class who are looking for an improvement in their living conditions. At the same time, the platformization of the housing economy and the structural lack of public housing interventions have made the right to live in the city increasingly problematic. Finally, the climate crisis affects urban centers and peripheral areas in different and equally dramatic ways, but makes daily life in cities more and more difficult and basically unattractive. At the same time, cities continue to be a irreplaceable place for social, political and cultural life. The results of the digital transformation have been considerably below the expectations. After a few years from the birth of the technological enthusiasm brought by the remote digital relationship measures adopted after the COVID-19, it became clear that exchange in physical presence cannot be replaced. Perhaps even more than before, cities continue to be places of exchange, conflict, hybridization, and places for a quest of the unexpected. In this sense, therefore, the topic of city quitting often seems to be more of an opportunity for destination branding and territorial marketing than a real opportunity for places and villages that are undergoing a real phenomenon of the depopulation. This is clearly demonstrated by two phenomena which have been much talked about in the Italian international context. The first one is that of south working, the supposed migration of young workers with high cognitive capital towards the villages of southern Italy in search of more sustainable forms of life and work. 4 years after the COVID-19 epidemic, most of these practices do not seem to have had a significant impact on the social and cultural milieu of the territories of the south, other than allowing some middle-class figures to find second homes in territories of origin of their families. A similar discussion can be made for the figures of digital nomads, who are effectively spreading into many remote areas of the world, but with an extremely reduced exchange of relational intertwining with the territories. So the impact seems to be, above all, linked to what we can define as a phenomenon of gentrification on one side, and on the other side to the production of poor labor and production of low-quality jobs, and a third probably as a general increasing of the cost of living for the original inhabitants. This doesn't mean at all that it's not possible to design programs, projects and policies related to city quitting on one side and to the repopulation on the other side. It means that we need to work in a very serious way, starting from a rigorous political, cultural, social and economic approach, without looking too much at the trends and the fashions of the present, and working more on real patterns of needs and desires starting from the territories. It means also that we need to look more radically at the kinds of capitals that are circulating in the territories, and this cannot be thought and conceived only as an isolated process, but it needs to be intertwined with the complex flows of the system.
The concept of city quitting, like much of what concerns the non-urban, has an accent of subtraction as marginality or internal area. The word quitting presupposes a kind of surrender rather than a positive, future-oriented choice. In the last years, people began to choose differently. Telecommuting frees people from the necessity of proximity to an office. This does not mean that we are all going to live in the countryside. However, distance from the central city, where certain characteristics of housing market desirability but also environmental and landscape quality are given, may no longer be thematized only in a negative terms, like suburbia or commuting. Quitting is a verb of movement that does not specify the where nor the why, which are the key elements that characterize and color the phenomenon. We could see a change in the preference system of certain groups that could redraw the territorial balance in more densely populated areas.
Since summer 2022, at Avanzi, we have set up a new area of action, a new enterprise which is a benefit company and which deals with initiatives, programs, and projects that promote local regeneration and enhance local resources and energies through the activation of spaces in mid-mountain areas. It is called Avanzi Discover because it brings to light, it brings out and enables the capabilities, the aggregation and multiplication of ideas, ambitions and intentions of local communities in low-density areas. Avanzi Discover is a space for experimentation and innovation for new approaches and languages. It tests tools and methodologies, it enables and hybridizes new professional skills. The company was created in 2022 after a path that began years ago, and it is a story that has to do with history because it was born in the time of a pandemic, between the end of a world that no longer exists and the beginning of an era that is not yet here. Since last summer, we have been challenging ourselves with the direct management of the Casa del Parco Adamello Park House, a regenerated space owned by public administration, located in Val Saviore, Cevo, Brescia, at 1,000-meter altitude and with 600 inhabitants. A mid-mountain hostel with a small kitchen, spaces for workshops, cultural events, a small open square, a center that tries to intercept, aggregate and support communities to build new local value together.